What's the big idea?
All right, we are here back again with episode number 23. 23, yes.
Good number.
Yeah, and we are here today to talk about a fascinating secret or a way to a better season. Secret to a better season. So, yeah, any thoughts on that, Eric?
I'm excited to hear.
Yeah,
what it is.
It's a big secret. It's so big that I'm not even going to tell you or anybody else.
It's the prelude to the next episode.
Every eighth word will be the first letter of the secret.
Okay, yes.
But I've already started, so.
Right.
It's a big word. Back. It's a big word. Anyway, no, it's no big secret. I think a lot of people know sort of what we're talking about. The idea is, and you know this too, Eric. I know you do, because we talked about it before the show. But the idea is, and it sounds hard to do, but it's about being more grateful for the things that we get to see and the things that we get to do as parents, coaches, and players. Goes a long way.
Can you think of any other words that would describe it?
Other than grateful?
Is like grateful the best way that we know
you can be appreciating things.
Yeah.
You can a perspective often leads to gratefulness, right? If you have a good perspective on things, then you understand that this isn't a big deal or things could be worse.
Having perspective means, I mean, there's one of the main ways of having that is just having experienced more, right?
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
That goes into the whole, your elders are wise type thing.
Mm-hmm. In theory, yeah. I mean, you can have elders who have been through a lot but don't learn, and then you can have people who have been through a lot but do learn.
And don't learn because they're not aware of what they're going through at the time. And because you can tumble on through life and live a lot, but if you're not really paying attention, if nothing is important to you, or how does that work? Like for something to be meaningful, for me to draw experience from it, I have to put value in it. You know what I mean? Like if what other people are playing sports, and I know people that aren't interested in sports at all, and like everyone, like I constantly forget it, and then I'll go up to them and be like, "Oh man, did you see like this final? It's like going on, like so and so is like crushing it," and they're like, "Yo, you know I don't watch sports." I'm like, well, and I just don't get it, because I'm like, I know, but like it's so amazing, and I still tell them every time, right? But they don't put value in it, and like. If they don't put value in it, they're not going to really remember stuff like this. So, but at the same time, am I wasting my time putting value in admiring sports? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. It's so inspiring in a way. And like, well, I guess I told you that earlier. Like whenever I watch tennis or volleyball or something, I'm always getting it's uncomfortable in a way. Yeah, because you want to play. It's
hard to just sit there and not want to do it.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. But I think that's the thing that I think real gratefulness or understanding perspective on things, it only can come. I mean, there's two ways to get it. So either you are like, you've been through some stuff that's serious, and it gives you a perspective. And if you've been through really bad things in your life, then it makes you philosophical. We talked about this too, like that famous quote. I love that quote from T-House of the August Moon. Remember that play that, where it says like pain makes man think, thought makes man wise, and wisdom makes life endurable. I love that quote because it's true. I mean, in theory, if you are a person who reflects, that's the big word, the reflection.
Yeah.
If you aren't someone who reflects, then you can just march through, you can repress, you can ignore lessons and keep doing the same silly things, or you can reflect and improve. And by like living through some serious crap or serious stuff, when other stuff pops up, you have that perspective, right? And so it makes you very zen, makes you very, I don't know what the word is, but very relaxed through other things that would throw other people off. If you've seen worse, then you tend to not overreact, right?
And what was it? The first one was pain makes man think.
Yeah, that great. Yeah, pain makes man think.
Well, if there's no reflection, then that first verse of that phrase is now not true.
Right.
And then you can't get on to the second and third one.
I think it depends on how bad the pain is. I guess, don't you think Is it inevitable that you would think through pain? Like, because even people who, like, I don't think this is I think even people who have been through, let's take an unintelligent, uneducated person who's been put into, jail for 20 years for something they never did, right? Especially, maybe it has to be like, if you went to jail for something you did do, then maybe you won't be reflective as much, but especially if it's an injustice, right? I think injustice or things that are unfair, like just, can be even, it adds to the trauma, right?
Yeah.
Like it makes it way worse.
I think it makes the trauma different because
it
is an injustice. Whereas in the other one, if you accept your guilt and then you're reflecting on it over those 20 years, it's two different.
Yeah. There's a lesson.
You were the evildoer or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lesson in that one versus the other one is coping. Right, the other one's coping with unfairness. Yeah. And it's funny because I think a lot of volleyball parents can probably relate to, and players, and coaches too, I'm sure, but they can relate to the coping, especially the parents and players, and they can relate to the coping through unfairness because that's what they find. A lot of them find themselves in the season. So we were talking about, because one example, we were just talking about Making a Murderer, that Netflix show. Yeah, that's so interesting. And one of the things about Stephen Avery, the guy in that show, is that he's very wise. Like, did you watch the whole thing? Did you ever see it?
Yeah. I have watched it a while ago.
He's really philosophical and insightful. Like,
in a weird way. Or it's not a weird way, in a surprising way, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Because the way a lot of certain people against him want him to be perceived is as that, like, guy who takes care of a junkyard and, like, lives in a trailer.
Easy target.
Yeah. And then, and I think that's what... Now, again, it's done by the director of this film, so they can have they can implement their interpretation or whatever. But you end up being surprised at how perceptive and insightful he is, because he almost knows what's going on to him, and he knows, or he even sees the futility in, he wants to try and do this, but he's already thinking ahead. He's like, even if I do this, I'll just perceive it this way. And he's like, so he's really trying to measure out his steps, trying to get out of his situation. But
he started pouring through law books too, right? Remember, he started to do that, right? Where I think one thing that happens is, I think that, sorry, we don't want to go too far, but it is interesting, because I think there's people, I think the underlying connection between what we're talking about, are there's people who feel that they are being ripped off, or they're being treated unfairly. That's the common bond here between, these sorts of things. And I think you get philosophical and you start to understand how things work, right? When you go through these things. So, like, whether it's the politics of club life, whether it's...
you're kind of losing me here. So you're drawing the people being treated unfairly to then needing to be, or then that is what creates us to be more grateful?
Well, I think that I'm just getting to the point where whenever somebody's gone through something horrific, I think that is something that brings perspective. And I just thought of, that idea. That's one of the worst things. Like, I couldn't imagine something like that, going to jail for 20 years for something you didn't do.
That's got to be like the worst.
That's got to be the worst thing, right? Like, I can't imagine much.
You're
if you're innocent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so I think that's where, what that breeds is a wisdom and understanding. And then if you take that scenario to, let's suppose we bring it to volleyball world and volleyball life, we're sort of getting at those there's things that parents and players think of as nightmare seasons. Like, this is absolute nightmare. Like, kid never plays, coach has favorites. In that scenario, like, that's something that people don't understand can be giving something of benefit. That's what I was getting at, like Stephen Avery in that Netflix thing, is becoming wise. He's becoming aware of things. His perspective on things is very interesting now. The other one was Adnan, that case, the serial podcast. There was a case of...
Wasn't he finally found?
Yes, he was
innocent?
He was freed. He was freed from jail, and they dropped the case against him, I guess.
Yeah, they dropped even the murder in second degree or manslaughter charges. So it wasn't even...
So for people who don't know what we're talking about, there's a serial there's this podcast called Serial, and one of the early episodes or shows they had for a season was about this 17-year-old kid who was tried as an adult for the murder of his girlfriend.
Just outside Boston?
Baltimore, yeah. And he, so it's funny because, I don't want to get too far off topic. But that guy, same thing, philosophical, went through serious stuff and came out very wise, and very much more mentally tough, I guess, so, but yeah, I think we're going too far down
And what I'm taking from the things you've been describing to slowly bring it back is I think there might be a correlation between the greater the pain or the lot or the suffering, the more likely, the more likely we can draw some positive conclusions from it, or end up gaining more perspective, which leads to then being grateful in future mode. Because it just seems so common sense. You have a terrible season. The next season, you just say you have one that's mediocre to most other people. It's probably amazing for you and your kid.
Yes.
Because it's not the nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the connect. Yeah. Because we started off talking about, you asked the question, can you be in a situation and not be reflective or thinking? And I said, well, it has to be really bad. If it's really bad, then I think it forces you to reflect. And I mean, we should be careful too, because we said, like, can't imagine anything worse than going to jail for 20. I mean, having someone you care about murdered or something like that, or having a child, pass away. Those things are probably, that's the worst. I think that having a child pass away or something, that would be the nightmare, the ultimate nightmare, I think, for everybody. And that's perspective too, right? Like, when it comes to sports, like, I've had that thought, like where if I was unhappy with a season, how it's going for my child or for me, I do remind myself and others, like, hey, at least we're here, at least we're healthy, at least we're playing. Right? Like, we shared one thing on our Instagram about that player, or on our social media, about a player who was paralyzed from almost from the waist down, and serious car accident, and she served her teammates in the final. A bunch of people held her up so she could serve a ball over the net to win a point in a match. And, that kid's never going to play volleyball again. And you just think about that stuff. I mean, parents, and I think in the West, we especially, because we're very busy and we're very, we're shopping, we're working, we're rush. There's little time to reflect on the good things. Like, taking our kids to volleyball practice is just another thing on the list of things to do. And then you sit there for a couple hours, or you sit there in a tournament all day, and you forget to look around at where you are. And, it's the old line of, forget to smell the roses, right? Like, there are a lot of good things here, even amongst the crap, even if you have an unfair coach, even if you have crappy teammates, even if your kid is not, good. Let's say, like, your kid's not as good as you want them to be, because that's another form of, negativity. I think the idea that, we all forget how lucky we are to have the problems we have. There's the key, or like our biggest problems are sometimes things we
have
forget.
better problems. I almost feel like guilty in a way whenever I bring up this topic, because it's like, well, as you were talking there, it's like, because I feel bad because I don't think I'm grateful enough in my own life, right? So just listening to you talk, I'm sitting here thinking about the things that I have, right? And
all of us. Same with me.
Yeah, so it's like you just put that feeling on me, and those who are listening to us, like, maybe that they kind of felt that same thing. This
episode, maybe we just call this episode the guilt trip. You selfish son of a gun, you.
No,
see, I didn't swear.
But there's a reason why that emotional response kicks in, right? It's because it's like, I know how real it is, and I just lost someone. Our family, or one of our family members, passed away recently, and like, hit us in such a way, like, it was sudden, and there's a whole story to it and whatnot, but it's just crazy, right? And like, and then especially because it was sudden, it just makes you immediately think, I didn't know that moment, you think back to that last moment you spent time together, and you had no idea that was going to be the last moment.
Yep.
And then your brain does a whole bunch of crazy things, right? But can't help but think on what more I could have done, should have done, and stuff like that. But then you go through like different emotional cycles, and then luckily, and then this is really what I felt like sorry, I'm going down a dark hole.
No, because it's perspective.
Yeah,
right?
and like,
that's the thing.
It wasn't until we actually held the funeral service that my anger was able to subside in a way. Because then
anger at yourself?
Anger at myself, and just like I don't know what happened, but I was just angry at like why they didn't get more treatment. But these are all, I don't know the whole medical history and stuff, right? So I was just angry, and angry at myself, and then finally having a service and seeing everyone and then talking. And then now I'm just looking at the pause. Like, the last time I saw this individual, it was actually a great interaction. And I'm thankful that that is what it was, because had it have been something different, or say I was in a bad place and I like was just
Right.
neglecting them or something, you know, I have to live with that for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah, that's a big one, because people always talk about that, right? Like you know, you should treat people like if it's the last time you're going to see them. You know, like you never know, right? Anybody, and,
Like anything you do, in a way.
Yeah, and it's I just think it's so easy to get like, so this is sort of what we're going into, like, you know, what does it mean to be grateful? I mean, I think that, you know, grateful is sort of what you're talking about, is appreciating things in the littlest of things, right? Like this is what's, you know, some of the tenets of, you know, Buddhism and a lot of religions that teach to notice the small things and the little things, and be grateful for them, good or bad, right? Because that's the other thing too, is like in the moment, our perceptions of what are good for us are often wrong, right? Like we think that something is good for us, and we don't know that sometimes the most horrific things that happen to us
can be like an impulse or something. And we think
we just aren't good because we're in the middle of it. You know, when you're in the middle of something, it's really hard to see it from 5 or 10 years down the road and look back. It's really hard to get a bird's eye view. Yeah, when you're in it,
because a big factor of that is perspective, right? So, and this kind of makes sense with the whole progression of life, is that as a child, we start out, we don't even understand reason and logic until we're, you know, puberty or whatever. I don't know. I actually don't know.
Speak for yourself.
Something like that, right? So, yeah, just getting those basics down, and then
I think it's actually, you don't understand puberty until you. No, just kidding.
Yeah. But everything is just trial and error, right? Like you from the simple stuff of just physical cuts and bruises, right? That's how your body gets so good at doing what it does. You fall over, you get cut. So there's the physical representation of that, and then there's the the psychological. You know, having not paid enough attention to this person, and one day they're gone, and then you realize. But again, it takes that awareness, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like
you have to stop and think about it.
I like that you raised the young child thing too, because like it is a metaphor. Like when I see parents, coaches, players in volleyball being very impatient, very unhappy, in a sense, throwing a tantrum, they kind of are, or we are too, because I'm sure I've fallen into that too, or gotten too worked up over something. We are sort of like that child who we're trying to ask to do something that we know is good for them, but they won't do it. And they think that it's a bad thing that you're making them go through this, but really it's a very good thing. It's the same thing. Like I tell this to parents all the time, and sometimes it's a tough sell, but I do say that, you know, if you're having like this horrific season with your kid, do you know that it's so good for your kid to be going through this? Or do you know that it's actually, we were just at a league recently, and a parent was having a hard time. So they're watching the fours league, and I guess they didn't get one of the startup. Like, so we have these fours leagues where kids can really play with no coaching. And we talk about the idea that too much instruction makes kids hesitant, and they end up looking over at whoever's instructing them rather than aggressively pursuing the ball. And so this was like a first game of the night, and a parent who I guess missed the first week and maybe didn't read the emails about, these are non-coaching leagues. We want the kids to fail and feel okay failing. And they lose their inhibitions, and by week 2 or 3, they start playing amazing. It's actually really true. If you try it sometime, it's very true. So she was out there coaching like people and other people's kids. She was like telling them what to do. And I was just there filling in by chance for our staff. And I said, "Oh, did you get our email about the non-coaching thing?" And she was like, "Oh, I heard they weren't getting instruction." So I was just like, "Yeah, okay." I said, "It's just the idea. It's for the whole idea of these leagues is that they don't get instruction." She was very impatient, right? And she was very uptight. And the kids were looking at her, even her not her kid. And she was, "Oh, can I instruct my kid?" I said, "Oh, you can instruct your kid like, you know, later tonight, or like, but not during the games, right?" And I said, "Just watch, you'll see. Like this is not just my." She
didn't like being told what she kind of.
Well, she was okay. It actually wasn't a bad exchange, but she was just a micromanager, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't understand the value in. So I said, I told her it's good practice for the kids to just play, because we used to do instructional stuff, and kids just they end up standing around more than they're instructing, right? And so, and they get enough of that in other parts of the world, in other parts of their world, right? So I said to her, like, it's also great practice for us as parents to sit there and let it happen.
Yeah.
And let it unfold. And I said, you'll see, they'll get better. And, sure enough, honestly, 2 games later, these kids were running around aggressively after ball. They got so much better in one night of just nobody's watching, nobody's stopping you, lose your inhibitions. And that parent, I think, got my point. Like, she sat there and she watched and she was, I think, impressed.
Well, why don't you take a moment and just describe why that improvement happens? Because I mean, like, I know we're talking about gratefulness, but I just like this thing, especially with volleyball, but it's got to be true with any sport. It is true with any sport. That hesitancy is gone, right?
That's it.
That's so key in volleyball. And I think this is off tangent or on tangent, off tangent, whatever.
This is a tangent.
There you go. The weird thing is, like, I've seen in some like certain drills, we get used to this thing where, coach initiates drill, Paul tosses here. So it turns into this hyper isolated, just like when you're in the gym doing an isolated, all right, bicep curl or something. And now it's very isolated. And then at the end of the practice or whenever you try to bust into scrims or kings, queens court, where it has to be free. There can't be any of that. And then all of a sudden they're still used to that, looking to coach for input or looking for the initiating signal that starts the rally. And then all of a sudden it's creative and free and open. And then it's just pausing, looking, and then they don't know where to go, right?
Yeah. And isn't that a universal law? Like, perfectionism is the opposite of progress. And if you think about it, so you apply that to business, you apply it to everything. Like, you can work on an essay till 4 a.m. and keep tweaking,
Yeah.
tweak until you miss the deadline. Or you can work on a business thing and never go live with it because you're like tweaking. Like, if we were here in the set, we were like, oh no, not everything's perfect. Like, the table's a little messy and the walls aren't right and all. Like, that could happen too, right? And you never do it. And same with an athlete. So a volleyball player will be like, worried about getting it the way coach or parent says. And then that kid is that, we know that thought, overthinking is the enemy of success, right? And overthinking is an enemy to execution sometimes, right? So, you and I talk a lot about things, and you tend to overthink things
for sure. And get too stressed
and then sometimes, and then we stop doing, right? And I'm a thinker too in a different way. Like, I have a catastrophic thought in my head, but then I put them to bed in my head before I move on. So if something has a catastrophe, we were working on a business thing a while ago, right?
Yeah.
BMGT, right?
Yeah.
And we went through, we started it. It was a great idea. But we looked at the catastrophic potential and we saw something.
And I think that symbolizes that awareness of what we're trying to talk about of, someone who goes through a lot of experiences can be wise. And that's the mechanism, is that for us to, like, I'm such a hard learner. You can tell me all the wise things in the world, but until I do it myself.
Do you mean wise as in intelligent wise or wise as in WHY?
Well, I guess you could say both. I meant WISE.
Intelligence? Okay.
Yeah, or perspective.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, well, I guess the why. Yeah, anyways, it doesn't matter. But
the why, though, WHY, does convince you. That's the only one.
Well, partly. So I can give different examples of this, but
sure.
Like when I went through my nutrition problem, right? I was a vegan vegetarian for a long time. Going on a tangent again. No. I ran into major health issues, and then I was bedridden, and I just spent that time like researching, looking things up, and I gained some information, and what I thought, I assembled it in a logical way that it made sense, and it also explained why what happened, and then I made the changes, and now I been eating more, I don't know what you call it, paleo primal, stuff like that. Got better, and then that's how I was able to go back to
It's a pretty well-rounded diet, though, your diet.
Yeah,
right? You're not just paleo. You just eat meat now and mix in other things, but healthier
I just
meats.
Don't eat processed food, right? Or I minimize as much as possible, and then common things around like alcohol and and just probably like cooking food and variety and stuff like that. But then you can tell me, and so that way was also in a way, it's like, what's that saying of die by the cross, or not die by the cross, but like learning things the hard way.
Yeah.
I know there's like
Learn by fire
Catholic reference there.
Yeah. This isn't this isn't the cross you want to die on, or a hill
I don't know why I brought this. Sorry. But it's like just learning it the ultra hard where I had no other way.
Cross to bear? What is that?
No. I think I screwed that up. I had no other choice though, right?
Any religious people, just make a
I'm
comment
sorry.
below the expression Eric's trying to express.
Yeah. I'm probably not doing it right.
It's okay. It's good for engagement.
But things like you and I talk about all the time, how good exercise is for us, right? And then I get in great goes of it, and then
we all do. That's everybody. That's
but
crazy.
then I'll stop doing it. But why is that? But
because we're you know what? Honestly, can I bring that back? Oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut off your story here, but
I went on a tangent.
okay, so
maybe you
I'll
can
bring it back a little.
Hopefully,
well,
I'm
if you're okay,
relevant.
I know what you mean. So that is a little bit connected with gratefulness, right? Like, if you're able to work out and exercise and you don't, you are not grateful for the body you have and for the abilities you have that,
Did you ever see Ben Patrick's video on that? He does this like motivational thing of why, not why you should use his program, but just why you should train.
No.
And
That's what I try to tell myself.
He says some people can't use their legs, right? And it was
Yep. No, we watched remember I told you that documentary I watched about that NFL guy who was a special teams guy, and he became, I don't think it's ALS. But maybe it was ALS, but he's now quadriplegic.
Yeah.
And he cannot move, and it was fast. Like, it was over a quick span of time that he lost the ability to move. And I remember watching that with my kids, and we were like, see, this is why we have to be grateful that I have a body. And I still tell my daughter this, who's like at university now, and she's she's going to the gym sporadically. And I said, listen, the whole idea of, I have to go to the gym, that phrase, whereas, no, you get to go to the gym. You are able to
you never hear it
physically
said that way.
move your body. Another great one, I thought, another great one was, Warren Buffett was talking to a group of high school students, and Warren Buffett, the investor, and he once said to me, he said not to me. He said, I was there. He said to this classroom of kids,
told you what stocks to buy.
We should just lie and say that we know these people. Yeah. Tony Robbins was in my basement the other day. He said that, if someone told you that you had one car your whole life, and it was the only car you were allowed to have, and it doesn't matter what happens, that's it. You can't take it back. You can't sell it. You can't exchange it. Wouldn't you treat that car like gold? He was telling these high school kids, and they were all like nodding, of course, yeah. And he's like, think that now your body is that car. Like, that's your only car you have. And if you aren't taking care of it, like, it would be insane, right? Like, literally, our bodies break down the way our cars do. Our, parts will go if we don't maintain them.
See, and every time I hear this, I feel guilty.
Well, it's not, don't forget. Sometimes I think that people confuse the word guilt with learning, right? Like, sometimes when you hear this,
okay,
you know what I mean? Like, rephrase that.
Because I don't blame you for what you're saying.
No, I know,
right?
but you do beat yourself up, right?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't.
Exactly.
You shouldn't beat yourself up, because, like, we live in a world that is designed to make us not think like this,
or just beat yourself up lightly.
I don't know what you're getting at. But anyway, we live in a world that's designed to make us not think like this, right? Like, it is good for business. It's very profitable if people don't take care of their cars.
Okay, well,
or don't take care of
bring
their
up
bodies.
the whole supplement industry or whatever, right? Like, this will fix your problem. Mm-hmm. Like, take this pill and you lose all this weight, and it preys on us for that. Or buy this clothes, it makes you look like this, and right.
So we're kept away from deep thinking in general, and that's why, like, it's very simple to be grateful, but it's also now become the new thing to market. Like, it's kind of weird that. So, like, I love the way our society works, right? It takes simple ideas, drags us away from them, right? And then it sells you all this other stuff.
Simple idea, like exercise and eat well.
Exercise, eat well, sleep well,
simple
right?
Ideas,
simple ideas. Be kind, right?
Right.
Takes them all away from you through the things by selling you stuff. So, like, it attacks self-esteem, it attacks reason, it attacks logic, and it just makes you miserable so that you buy more and more and more and more. And then we're hitting a point now where they're trying to sell you back the simple solutions. Like, for instance, if I'm someone who doesn't want to, take medications or something else, right? And now the best health trainers that charge the biggest prices are now giving that advice on their social media, and they're selling that. Even us, like, we're not selling anything here, but we are giving back basic wisdom.
Like these expensive trainers would be now just saying, just do the simples, like just go for a run and do body weight exercises. I
actually told you this when you were thinking of becoming, like, you were getting into the health industry and you wanted to coach people.
Yeah,
I said, you know how you stand out now in that industry is actually go away from all the tech.
Honest.
Go away from all the tech and tell them you don't need that stuff. It's just hard work. and then that's the answer. That's the one
man.
That trainer makes the most money because they're actually telling hard truths. Dave Goggins, right?
Yeah.
Dave Goggins, if people don't know, he's an ex-Marine and Navy SEAL. He's a motivational speaker. He's written about doing really hard things, and he intentionally puts himself through hell physically.
Yeah.
So that life is easier for him. And, that's a basic message. And he's the first one to tell people. They don't like to hear it. They don't like to hear that stuff. But he makes a fortune saying these basic things. Like, just get... Sorry, we're I don't know. It's all connected to perspective, right? Because if you are doing hard things and you're, put yourself into suffering a bit,
right,
is a good way to go.
There's another parallel image of this, of like how the body works to get stronger. The concept of hormesis, right? Stress, the natural response to
Hormesis was a Greek myth, right?
Really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I don't know. sounds like it. Hormesis.
I think that's it does sound like that. I think that's what they called it in the what was the class I took? Anatomy and physiology.
No, yeah, hormesis. So explain hormesis to people.
Well, just you either induce stress or you are going to an environment with a certain stressor, and then your body, if capable, will have a physiological response to then make you more resilient to that stress. Right. So lift heavy thing, like heavy object, your muscles can do it, but they're also straining, and like they say your muscles tear in a way. I don't know how that works, but
little tears.
It's challenging, or
that's
lactic acid
that's how you
builds
get the
up.
pump, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the little tears, then the muscles heal as it's healing.
And we can't do it for forever because it has a form of not pain, but like that muscle pump, it hurts. And so then, the body's natural response is to get stronger for the next time. Right. And the same thing with the cold exposure,
therapy,
right? It's not pain, but it's incredibly uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. And that's one thing from the cold therapy. Like it absolutely just destroys anxiety. It and I guess the whole workout in the morning, it's like you've already done this incredibly difficult thing.
Yep.
Like bring on whatever else the day has for me.
And the mind works the same. So like the hard things that parents go through, the hard thing your kid goes through. Like if you don't believe us, just look at what Eric was talking about. Those other hard things that are suffering and awful, like maybe working out to exhaustion super early in the morning, maybe going into cold water and staying there like for a minute or a few seconds even. All of those things, they definitely produce some sort of callousing of the body and mind. And so do bad experiences. People don't know it though because they're in the middle of it. But they will know it after it's done, or 5 or 10 years down the road. Like I've gone through horrific things in my life that are like rough and or unfair, but they have also brought me to wisdom and to other things that have made me stronger and better in other ways. So when other people are freaking out about things, I tend not to, just because I've had some stuff that was tricky, right? So
what do you think the difference is between encountered or unpredicted suffering and induced or voluntarily chosen?
Yeah, I think in the short term, it's good.
The one must develop discipline in a way.
Yeah,
especially if you continue to decide to do that difficult thing over and over again.
Well, here's the tricky. Here's the tricky part: is I don't think you can fool your brain. So, like if you start enjoying doing the hard things,
right,
then they cease to be hard things.
Do you ever start to enjoy them?
I think
this sounds bad because it obviously reveals that I haven't been an incredibly disciplined.
I think that honestly, I think that humans, just by definition of it, we become accustomed to things, and we are creatures of habit. And if you're able to do it every day and you see benefit in it, it's tricky. Then, you could argue that I'm doing this because it's good for me. I'm excited to do it now. Then it might lose. And now it's still going to have the physiological. Now, a lot of people do the stuff like ice baths and the workouts for physical benefit.
Yeah.
And there's still something about, I think the threshold probably has to change. So this is why people lower the temperature on their water when they do it. This is why they work out a little harder the better they go.
I like this because this is really, I mean, what do you think? Do you think your mind state or the general...
Are we off topic? No, because are we still talking about things getting, how bad do they have to get? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we're talking a little bit. I guess we're going into the weeds a little bit. But I mean, in theory, though, I mean, we are getting to the point of like, so let's suppose a parent knows they like you don't want to willingly walk into a horrible situation for your child, I guess, right? Like no parent would say, all right, we're going to go find the worst coach and the worst club team and we're going to get stronger from it and we're going to get better from it. But I think what we're talking about here, like this sort of connects with the second part of your question about involuntary bad thing. Those are, I think, very good for people. I know it sounds awful, like because involuntary bad things, like, again, when they happen, you're just like, there's no way that your immediate response is going to be, this is amazing. There's no way.
I mean, so much of them will be involuntary.
The genuine crappy stuff in life is involuntary. We talked about this right before the show. Like if people can wrap their head around this idea, it goes a long way to being grateful, I think. And that is that really bad things are going to, I mean, this is the pick me up. This is the feel good show.
It picks up at the end. Yeah. It just has to be dragged down.
But this is, believe it or not.
I didn't swear. I was about to.
That was very good. Yeah. No, but this is something like I know this is, people mistake this as being pessimistic, but it's actually the only way to be optimistic.
It's empowering once you kind of accept it.
And it makes your life easier.
I think so.
It makes your life easier. It makes if you understand that bad things are inevitable, and if everybody listening to the show, if all of our relatives listening to this show can repeat to themselves, really bad things are going to happen to me, to my loved ones, in my life. Oh, it's not even a theory. Like humans always say, don't say it, you're going to jinx it. There's no such thing as jinxes. It is understanding that they're going to happen. Then when they do happen, instead of saying why, poor me, you can say, this is the thing that guy on that cool volleyball show warned me about. Right? You are just going to, you will be ready for, you're going to be a little braced for it. I love that term, bracing for something. Like, again, you got to breathe, but, it's so important to understand that stuff's going to happen. So even in your volleyball club journey, right? Okay, let's take it to parents. I don't know. There's a lot of parents maybe listening who are just starting out. Maybe their kids are just starting out. I think every club parent who's been in the system for a while can tell that parent safely, you will have nightmare scenarios here, right? But let's remember things. So what does gratefulness look like? Your kid is healthy. Your kid, I mean, of course, injuries happen too, right? So that's another thing. A lot of parents have that. It's funny. We did a post in a volleyball group about asking parents, what's the best thing about the season so far? A number of the comments, a number of the respondents were people who had kids who were injured and they bounced back and they were finally playing. So there's that perspective from a really bad thing. The kid might be enjoying the sport more because they have that perspective. So, I think that if you understand first that bad things are going to happen to you in club world and in life, coaches can think of this, players can think of this. It's a very good practice, and it does bring that perspective. So when you are healthy, or when things
it's a really powerful practice,
and when things are going well, then you just are that much more happy and appreciative.
Right. So do you think also when you are practicing this, or like you are I guess developing gratefulness, I guess it would be something you practice, right? So I think I can say it in such a way, but it may also make you less hyper excited or less superficial. When you are in a something happy is happening or whatever, or you're on a high, your team is winning, it may level out those peaks, and those 100%. Peaks can also, the problem with the peak is that once your feet are kind of swept up from under you, the fall is much greater, right? And then you can fall. And then this in volleyball, momentum is so significant. So that I'm just saying, I think that's what it will do as well. It'll prevent you from getting to, I don't know,
the peaks and valleys. Right?
Yeah. I guess I kind of explained it. So
No, yeah, I think this is where, I mean, this is why Stoicism, I mean, that's a philosophy that's very trendy today, but that's where we get the term from, because Stoics, no, and it's not like, again, remember the philosophical name came after, right? People do this. People know to do this.
The name came after.
Yeah,
It's not named
like,
after them.
yeah, and I think that again,
because they are.
Well, it came from people probably who started living in, like we talked about, they lived in bad moments and bad experiences.
And the Stoics were attacked for saying that they don't appreciate or enjoy life. They numb themselves from it. And then that's not true.
No, that's the outsider's perception.
They are probably more so living its reality in the moment than.
Yeah, well, let's explain. So what Stoics do is they, the original Stoics, just like I said, it wasn't a life hack. It was just an idea that I know that life can be much worse than it is right now.
Yeah,
and I know that it could be much better. So the idea is, like you were talking about, as a volleyball player, if you can be a little stoic on the court, what that means is you don't go crazy excited, and you don't get crazy down. And the idea there is, like you said, if you get crazy high on anything, like you're super excited and super happy, then there's almost like a lack of awareness that it could change at any moment. And it might even make you take your foot off the gas pedal, by the way.
Right.
People who think that everything's rosy and lasting forever don't tend to succeed very long in whatever they're doing, because they're very comfortable. And that's why, by the way, that's why we're like this. That's why we aren't grateful, because we're living in rosy land, right? Our culture, this is where the term first world problems comes from. Our culture is very spoiled, right? We have a lot of things, and we have a lot of things going well for us in terms of, we don't have to worry about the small things. We don't have to worry about maybe our next meal. Some people do, obviously, but the vast majority of people don't have to worry about where their food comes from, or, even dying from...
the majority of the world does.
And the majority of the world, or a lot of the world does. And
so the only difference between the Stoic and the everyday person is that the Stoic just does it more.
Yeah, I mean, and Stoics,
they just do that visualization more often.
Well, and I think before I actually started studying Stoicism and reading about it, it was a little frustrating because it's become this pop culture thing, and I was already living there a little bit anyway. Like I think that's what I mean. People naturally come to it.
When I came across it, it just felt like common sense to me, and it did feel like it had so many parallels to like Buddhism and stuff. I think they look at the I guess the spiritual side of things a little bit differently, because obviously one comes from Greek mythology, or not mythology, but like they don't even they don't get into the Greek gods and stuff. It's actually not about that at all. It's just it's not really a religion. It's just a
practice, a way of life,
a mental way.
It's a philosophy, a way to live
your
life.
Philosophy, but yeah, it just seems like it's always great to read something that I had a feeling for and I just knew was right, and then now I can see it spoken in such a simple way. Maybe that's why I definitely have read through the books, but I see it trending now. But it's great that it is, at least. Yes. I'm grateful that it is.
It is. It is. It's just, it's very fascinating, because like we talked about this before too, like it's hard to read about a mindset and adopt it. Yeah. Because what we discount is that, again, going back to this bad things, people arrive at these things through experience, and those people are genuine. If people are reading about it in a book and haven't gone through the experiences, they're not going to get there. It's very difficult. You can't replace
experience. Scrape the surface of it, I guess, but
yeah, but that's why, like I talked about the marketing of things and the business approach of things, because it's very, and this is why people don't understand, like some of the things we're talking about. Like, if we talk about in the show about how, oh, wait a minute, you're going to bench the player because they can't serve. So that means that player will just not be great at serving longer. And they start saying, no, we got to win, and this is competitive sports. And I'm like, but that's how you win in the long run of competitive sports. You're talking about winning at this low-level sport that you're calling competitive.
Right.
I'm telling you, this isn't competitive volleyball. Up here is competitive volleyball. We played at super high levels. That's where it matters. That's where you have to win. And everything else is just preparation for that. So by you telling this 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 16, 17-year-old that they can't serve, or you're going to sub them out because they miss their serve, you're ensuring that player's misery with that skill or ineffectiveness is going to last longer. And people argue because they haven't had the same experience as us. That's why we can't explain it to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost
we know why we can't.
Yeah, like
right.
we make a post about it on social media, and
Yeah.
it gets attacked by people who've never done it, because there's that line again, you don't know, or people don't know what they don't know.
They don't, right.
So you can pick up a
Right.
book, you can read all this stuff, and this is where we're at right now as a society. Everybody's reading a book and they think they know it and they want to share it with you.
There's a market to that, right? The book thing.
You've had people, right, who
Yeah.
who read these books and want to share them with you, and they think they're living this life. They think they're living these books, and they don't know anything about what's in there at all. And
They know about it, but how many actions have they made that follow it?
Yeah, well, they know. When I say they don't know, I mean that they know the content of what it
I know
says.
it. Yeah, I know.
But they don't know it.
Yeah.
They don't know it because they're not living it. And that's where, so, I mean, this is the thing about life, right? Like, so, you know, you come to you live your life, you go through these experiences, you come to certain conclusions, and you want to communicate them with the world. It's like literally one of the stages of
Right.
life. Like literally people who, you know, great thinkers, they come to, oh my God, I had this
I have to
amazing
share
thing.
this.
I have to share this with the world because they want to. But the audience that you're sharing it with,
They haven't gone through it.
they haven't
So,
gone through it.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible. And that's why you get these tribes of people.
And that's why they become recluses typically after that happens, is because they realize and they're like, oh no.
Yes.
And then it's,
That's exactly
Yeah.
right, because you can't function. You can't function in the world.
It's so-
If they don't relate. So, but to go back, like there's before
it is depressing, all this stuff.
No. But sorry. So it seems depressing
I
to say
know,
that horrific things are going to happen, but it's actually the best form of optimism, because what happens is now you understand that bad things happen, so you're not going to get too devastated. And then when they do go great, you are all the more happy because you are appreciative. So like basically what I'm getting at is, without crap, you have no good. You can't have amazing happiness without tremendous sadness. And you could argue that the worse the sadness is, or the worse the pain is, the more that little happiness will make an amazing reaction.
Right.
Not that you need to exert it overly, like, you know, you don't need to be,
Right.
because you have that awareness that it could come back again, right?
But I would also argue that having that perspective may give you more enthusiasm when this wonderful scenario does happen, and then your actual level of enthusiasm may end up opening doors later on. Or if you didn't have this perspective on things, and then this thing happens, and then you just kind of engage with it lightheartedly, it's not too serious, and then you know, maybe that other door doesn't kind of come. So, you know, and so I'm just trying to say, it gives an enthusiasm in a way in that you realize that, yeah, this thing is happening and it hasn't happened in a long time, or the last 10 times it did happen, it sucked. And so finally you're seeing it in its pure essence, or I know it sounds too fancy. It's just like, that sounds way too ridiculous. Yeah, I'm just trying to say that, like, I think that it'll make you more enjoying it in that moment.
Yes. Appreciative.
Yeah,
That's.
I'm just trying to further define that, because
Well, the people, like, again, it goes back to that word of perspective, right? Like you give a kid, so give a kid their 10th favorite, their worst flavored ice cream, right? Give it to the kid that gets ice cream every day, and the kid will be, what the hell is this, right? And they won't even want to eat it. Give it to a kid who never has ice cream, never has the money for ice cream. Kid's gonna be the happiest kid in the world, right? There's your perspective right there. And what is it? That kid without the ice cream has gone through way tougher things, way harder things. They've had more crap. So remember that, you know, in the volleyball sense. I mean, I think one of the reasons people aren't grateful in the volleyball community or in sports community in general is that they don't remember that what the goal of sport is. They think that they have a 4 or 5 year window to win as much as they can and to get this kid as good at volleyball as possible, hopefully go to varsity, hopefully go pro. We're going to do shows on, you know, do you even want to do that? When they're forgetting what sports is about. Sports is about developing character and making people good at life, right? And who's good at life? People who have unfair things, people who have great things, people who have bad things, people who have the whole gamut of experience, right?
in sports,
They learn to manage that, and they learn to navigate those ups and downs, right?
yeah. I just wanted to say that, and the way that we see sports now, pro sports now, I don't think that would change if that were the philosophy, even though it's it is to win in this 5-year span. I don't think compromising or having that shift of what the goal is here to go from just having winning kids, not caring about their future, or just developing amazing players. I still think the professional sports world would probably be the same, is because
or better, yeah,
or better.
Well, we talked about this. Remember, we had this discussion. Like, is this the first generation where the bulk of kids doing sports are doing it for the wrong reasons?
Yeah,
like they're trying to win, they're trying to collect medals, and some of them are coming up a little toxic, and then they don't have the mental strength. I mean, some of the high level athletes.
We're seeing it more.
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more. Like, I've seen athletes succeed at like pre-varsity level. I don't think they'll succeed at varsity because it gets a little more honest there, and varsity meaning university, post-secondary, college, and then pro, not even a chance, because they don't have that right mentality. Like, it's just not there. Like, I see these kids that think they're going pros, and I'm like, you're gonna fall off because you just don't have
it may not happen then, but maybe they need to go through a phase of gaining that experience.
And how they handle it. But all the evidence points to that they won't handle bad things very well because they don't have the patience, right? They don't have the work ethic. They'll quit and blame.
And I'm just trying to say, at that time, it doesn't mean it's
it's not a lost cause. People can develop, although it's hard because you can see the mindset in successful people, I think, fairly early. Like, you know what I mean? I think there's some things where,
meaning that some may never draw.
I think it's humility, right? Humility, and like, because humility leads to appreciation too, right? Like, and gratefulness. People who are humble.
We all have a different kind of path to go through, though. Like, maybe certain things need to happen for them in their life to.
Now, are you getting a little defensive because you think that you are this type? You don't think you're. Because you want to
defend. I'm just trying to
see, because what you're exhibiting
not
now,
put doom on everyone.
Right. But sometimes I think you're like this. Sometimes I think that you think that you hope.
You think I'm speaking for myself? I could be, in a way.
I think a little bit. But see, the key thing about you that you don't understand, and I'm sorry, this is going to pump your tires a bit. But, that's the beauty.
I thought you were going to put me down.
No. This is a compliment. So that's you're exhibiting the same thing. Like, I know this in a lot of high level people, and I have it in myself. I don't vocalize it as much as you do, probably because of insecurities, but that's the humility. Like, how you say you beat yourself up when you hear Dave Goggins, or you feel guilty, that's the humility. That's the key. That's the proof that you have the perspective. No, you do.
Okay.
So that's the proof that you already have it, and the beauty of it is that the people who have it don't tend to know they have it because they have that humility. But sometimes that's the problem, is that they don't go for what they really want or what they can do, or they don't reach their potential because they're almost humble to a fault. The goal is to practice humility balanced with confidence, right? Not arrogance, but that confidence. That's the magic combination. If you can mix, and that's what, if you think about everybody who's high achieving in the world, they are humble yet confident. Because, and how do you get that way? Because you've pulled through some really nasty stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it was your training, whether it was your level of suffering. So you're humble because you're very aware that you could be there again, but you're confident because you pulled through a few things, that's it. That's the magic. So, I mean, to bring it back to parents listening and to volleyball players, when you are in a tough moment, understand that this service isn't just like this bad year, bad experience is not just going to be about, well, maybe this will make me stronger for next year. Hopefully you have that perspective. That's a very rare perspective. But really the ultimate thing is you want to draw on this the rest of your life, right? These experiences, you got like, if you're a 15, 16-year-old kid, it's like 70 years left, maybe more, hopefully, right? So, like, think about that. These moments, like, I remember I told you the discussion we had, like, when my daughter was getting called, like, she had some racist issues in we live in a rural area, and she's having getting called racist names in kindergarten. And
what are you saying about rural areas?
No, but I'm just saying, that they're not used, so it's not as common for them to see someone of color in their class, right? And she was getting some racist, and my wife was like, my wife was a little angry and whatever.
In the gym?
In school.
Okay.
In school, yeah. Not. I mean, we've had some other things in volleyball where I'm not one to jump on the racist thing, but there were some weird things about that. I was like, not understanding. But I know white parents who go through the same thing. So, but in this case, I said to my wife, like, when do you want her to go through this stuff? Like, would you rather that she went through life all roses and unicorns, and then when she's 20, bam, something horrible happens? Or would you rather the horrible stuff starts now? Because that'll help her. Like that's going to help her. The sooner you can, it's funny, because the sooner you can get to bad, the better.
Yeah.
The sooner you can get to something that gives you perspective.
But it doesn't mean you don't comfort them in the, like, obviously.
Oh yeah, comfort. No, comfort and deal with the
support,
situation.
yeah.
Yes, but also be grateful. Yeah, you don't. Like, but be.
You'll get over it.
Yeah.
You'll see the benefit in 10 years. You're fine.
Honey, it's just burning crosses.
Yeah.
We just anyway.
Wow.
I don't want to get political. No, but you help, but you also understand the value of it. So in other words, so what happened, because perspective and gratefulness is really just a coping thing. Like it helps you cope. I don't say coping like in terms of, because then you don't tend to believe it.
So then as a parent, you must go through a pain in a way that obviously your kid can't understand, and that you can only really vent about it with your spouse, because you see your kid go through this, and you know the benefit, or not the benefit, but you know the benefit or resilience that it will give them, but it's a time delay, right? And it's painful in the process, but then later on you know it. But so that's gotta hurt, for you as a parent. You know it. Your kid is just in the suffering. They don't feel it.
I mean, that's where communicate, parents are supposed to explain these things. So I'll tell that exact thing to them when they're going through something. I said, listen, and parents do, right? Like that speech of, you won't see this now, or listen, I can tell you this because I've been through it.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to listen to what I'm saying, right? You don't even have to listen to my advice. You don't have to listen to whatever. But I'm just telling you that these moments make us tougher. They make us stronger. I tell my kids that all the time. Whenever they're going through something crappy, I'm just like, that life's a long story, and it's just ups and downs of life that are going to happen, and you need to understand that you're actually better off when really crappy that stuff happens. It's so hard.
I know.
You just heard me avoid swearing.
Yeah, that
crappy. Crappy.
No, but I'm laughing at that, and
that's my pep talk. Well, again, I still say that the more, it's not even. So one of the things, I remember this idea that there's the notion that people who who's really unhappy in the world are people who expect other people to say thank you when they hold the door open for them. Right. So if you hold the door open for someone and they don't say thank you, you instantly turn into the biggest jerk in the world. You're like, you're welcome. And you're but and then you have to ask yourself, why did I hold the door open for this person? Or why did I let them into traffic and they don't wave? And then you're like giving them the finger. Did you let them into traffic so you get the wave? Did you hold the door open so you get the thank you? Or did you hold the door open for them because you're a nice person and you don't care about the thank you?
Yeah.
So there's something there about expectations, right? So if I expect thank yous, if I expect waves in the rearview mirror when I let someone in, then my life is going to be miserable because I'm expecting positive. I'm expecting good.
Yeah,
Whereas if you lower your expectations of people, then you are pleasantly surprised throughout your life with kindness. When someone is kind to you, you're like, oh wow.
And the whole thing you get what you give. If it's not
true.
Giving, then it's a transaction.
Yeah.
Well,
it's how you see the world.
I know. I don't like that phrase.
Because it's. I know what they mean though. I know what the essence is.
Right.
There.
Basically, I take from whenever I think I forget who, it was someone older with more wisdom. I think they once described it to me. It's like, if you're giving someone money or someone you're loaning someone money, just assume you're never going to get it back. In a way. And now as soon as I heard that, and then
now, was this the person who was borrowing the money from you?
No. Yeah, right.
That would be the best. Now, Eric. And I never saw that person again. Okay.
True.
I like that.
Oh man.
No, but the idea there is what?
Well, it just that the idea there is that it's me helping someone. And I would think that only someone would come to me and ask for money if they truly, really need it. And if I am able and willing and I don't have and I'm able to dispense of this amount or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Obviously I'm not going to give them my savings or something, but yeah.
You're going to get a lot of emails this week.
Yeah.
From all three.
No, I'm broke.
3 people watching.
Eric's
broke. So, but the idea there is, if you expect a certain level of things, which I think, this is the trap we all get into.
It's a transaction if there's expectation.
But we're also, not only that,
and then it's like, I paid for my thing and I didn't get it. I'm mad.
Yeah. That's a big part. You're right. Cash does increase our expectation. That's when it comes to paying for club, and I'm paying for this and I expect something. But maybe if you start expecting, like we said, the gamut, expect the gamut. You're going to get good, you're going to get crappy, and it's all valuable. That's the thing that's hard. That's the hard sell. Because like I said at the beginning,
expect the gambit.
Yeah, because if
that's the show title. Excuse me.
That's what the show's about. That's
like, what are these guys talking about?
Seinfeld reference. No, the idea is that if you walk into situations understanding that you're going to get good, you're going to get awful, and it's all valuable. Like, that's the kicker. That's the one that people can't see.
Yeah.
Understand that bad stuff is good for you, and the more bad stuff you go through in some weird way, the better off you. I know, like, you can look at this through history, by the way, too. You can look at cultures. You can look at that went through horrific things, and as a culture, they're better off now. As a you can look at things in nature that live in really tough environments, and then they thrive as a result. You know? Like, it's a universal law we're talking about here. This is not even a theory. This isn't an opinion. This is a reality that the more difficult things people go through, they're just stronger. They're able to. Now, if they don't, you have to reflect, and you can't numb the pain either. By the way, numbing the pain is not good. Well, it's like taking a pain. Imagine if I took 50 pills before I went in the ice bath, and I'm like, "This is great." Then I'm not reaping the benefits. Right? I can't escape. Right? Well, that's you need to live with it. Live with it.
Have we spoken enough? Have we talked at all about why aren't we?
Why? Well, I think I have been, because I talked about the busyness of life, and we talked about how we talked about it keeps us so.
It's also the harder thing, right? This is a theme that keeps coming up.
Yeah,
it's the harder thing to do, because you have to put yourself in that. If you're going to visualize something, you're going to visualize the loss of something.
Yep.
You're choosing to, it's probably not as bad as like a really intense workout, or in terms of comparison, I don't know, but it's definitely on the scale of uncomfortable things, right? Yep. So,
it's easier to fly off the handle.
Yeah, and it's easier. Yeah, it's easier to just, I don't know,
react.
Be whimsical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to just react.
Yeah.
It's easier to scream at someone.
It's easier to react, and that's what ends up screwing things up the most, is when it's like you either put the work in, like the more energy and, work you put in now. Yeah, what's that other saying? The easier life is, or like easy life, or easy choices, hard life, or hard choices, easy life.
Yes,
is that how it goes?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We're just going to say quotes all show.
And your lucky numbers are. No, it is. It's so basic that it's funny that, like, again, we talked about the marketing of, like this is now becoming the trendy.
There's many reasons why we don't do it.
Yeah,
there's only a few reasons why we should, or one reason.
I think one reason we don't, like I said before too, is the busyness of life. We're kept on this treadmill. Like
I think that's a big one.
I think our economic system ensures that our minds are constantly stimulated.
Worried about our mortgage.
And the more miserable we are, the more we run to these mind-numbing things. So in other words, like I said, the 50 pills in the ice bath, we kind of do that. Like, this is what makes us not think about things. We don't reflect. We don't learn, and we just run to medication. And medication, I don't mean drugs. I mean, like, well, it could be alcohol. It could be
TV.
TV. Could be computer games. It could be everything. Even, by the way, sports are becoming
crosswords.
Just keep going. The macrame.
What are you gonna say?
I was saying that even sports is becoming it's a coping thing. Like, we run adult leagues, and I know for a fact that people come running to the leagues as their thing, and they're miserable. So a lot of people there are miserable to each other, are miserable to us as organizers, and it's because they're just filing this under medication, mind-numbing, and so when they go out to the volleyball court with their kid, or their kid goes on a team and they have a miserable experience, or the coach is having a miserable experience, they're not grateful for that moment, because their mind is just like, we're training
You're
our
getting
brains.
therapy from it in
Well,
that moment.
we're training our brains. Everything we do all day is a workout for our brain, and tendencies
Right.
crop up. So it's hard to take your brain out of react. Do something, react. Do something, react. Do something, react. All day. Reaction to things. Like the reaction, like grabbing a glass of beer at the end of the night, or chugging something, or taking a pill, or watching TV, or playing video games. Those are reactions, right? So then we go to the thing and we react again. So because it's hard to just turn on the patience switch, right? It's hard to read a book. I could read a book about patience, right? And actually that'd be funny. Write a book about patience and make the book start like 60 pages in.
That would be hilarious, actually. Yeah,
that's a good. I was gonna put that on Amazon. Actually, I think I'm gonna write that book. How to be patient. No, but
patience or like self. What's it called? Masochism. Put yourself through
Exactly.
suffering.
Yeah.
Why am I reading this?
No, but so you can't turn on the patience switch, right? So you got to practice it. It's it goes back to that line I always say to you too about how we do anything is how we do everything. So, if you act this way in one aspect of your life, it's very difficult to go into another aspect and just shift modes and be a totally different person.
I do. I ask myself this all the time because I know some people that know what they want or know what's good for them, and they just do it. They just do it like every day. Like they may miss a few days or whatever, or like they knew what they wanted in like young in life, and then they just went after and pursued that career or whatever. And then, but in other examples like people who are daily runners, and they're just a runner. They just do that.
Yep.
And I know that, and I love running. I know firsthand the benefit of it, and I enjoy it. And then I don't do it every day. And I just like, how do I go from, but again, maybe, there's personalities. We have different ways in which we function.
Well, I mean, and you talked about this too. Like you can get jealous of people who are doing the discipline thing, but you have to remember one thing. Sure. So the one saving grace here for people, if you're someone who looks at other people and wants to be like them, and this is the other part of like writing the books that we talked about. Like
you're gonna say what I know you're gonna say.
What am I gonna say?
You're gonna say don't compare yourself to others.
Why?
Oh, because it's just good to do.
Another quote, another fortune cookie.
just for me.
No, what I'm saying, I'm going to talk about the futility of comparison, the uselessness of comparison, because their story got them to that. Like you don't know why that runner's there.
Right.
Like, right? It's almost arrogant of us if you think about it. And this is, I think there's a connection between anxiety and self-obsession a little bit, because you're looking at that person and don't get defensive.
For sure. No.
Okay,
no,
sorry.
I'm disagreeing.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to be self-obsessed if you're anxious.
And isn't anxiety just like a kind of form of paranoia? And isn't paranoia in a way just a way of considering all problems?
Yeah,
or like
but also as they
happen?
pertain to you, right?
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Yes.
You're the subject. Yeah.
So like, but think of how arrogant it is that like if I'm watching like Dave Goggins, right, and I'm like saying that guy runs marathons every morning, and that guy, man, why can't I do that? Well, what you're doing there is you're discounting his whole life story.
Right.
You're seeing him as you, and you're like, and that's kind of like self-centered, right? So like that guy's life got him there, right? Your life has gotten you here, right? So the idea of comparison, this comes in handy for volleyball community too, by the way, because a lot of parents compare their kid to other kids and compare themselves or whatever, other teams. That's a different story. It's almost, it's like it ties in with that idea of teaching someone through a book. It's impossible for them to get at the same conclusions you've reached by just reading your book.
Yeah.
They can read your conclusions and they can hopefully maybe learn from your story
the
and
book
relate
still
them to
serves a purpose. I still think there's value in them, right?
Yeah,
But,
well, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
There's value in them or
There's value, but they're not necessary. Like what
Yeah.
if someone never was able to read them, they could still draw the same conclusions at the end of their life or halfway through or a quarter of the way through or whatever.
Well, I think this is why
Right?
as a society we're heading to this
You need this for everything. To understand that, here's this. Or to understand this,
or
here's this.
do hard things. I think that's why that message is out there. Like go through bad things.
Yeah.
That's sort of I think because the same discussion we're having and we're arriving at this thing where like you can't teach people to have a better perspective. They can only gain a better perspective through understanding the value in bad things. So like when your kid is having a nightmare season, that's the chance. Or you're having a miserable season as a parent or as a coach. If you're having a miserable time with parents or with players, there is value in it, and you are becoming a better person if you learn from it. If you blame, it's kind of like the medication thing. If you blame, then you're numbing, your lessons here. You're not, it just sort of dismisses all thought, right? Blame dismisses thought, right? If you label people as idiots, stupid, dumb, right? Then you are giving yourself permission to not understand the value. And I mean, you can still gain some perspective because, next year you might have a great team and you're like, oh my God, it's so much better. But, just understand. I think this is why we're not grateful, because we are expecting amazing all the time.
A lot of people, the parents who may be listening, they may actually have known some like veterans in their life. Like I'm just thinking of like my great uncle, and this is a guy who is he was in the Dutch Navy, sunk twice on small Dutch destroyers, survived, and then he still was crazy enough or brave enough or whatever, and then he went on to become a submariner.
Wow.
And then anyways, like he still survived the war. And like I only met this guy a few times in my life, but he was just like, I don't know, calm as a cucumber, but like also his handshake like crushed my hand, and like just I don't know. He was a really interesting guy, and like
so
whenever
your soft, spoiled, entitled hands.
I don't know. He after the war, he was like
Did
a
you
games
crumple?
warden.
Did you crumple down on the ground?
No,
Ow!
no. I think
Ow, that's my video game hand. No,
yeah,
just kidding.
yeah. No, he just like he seemed like absolutely nothing in life could faze him at that point. And this is when he was like 70 and stuff. I think that's the only time I saw him.
But they have real trauma. That's
like, like I can't. But also, they also have real trauma. Who knows what negatives are now left imprinted on his life. But when he was with his family and he got to see his family overseas, because the family like split and stuff or migrated, like he was just, you could tell he was very happy to be there and just was focused on you, the person that he only gets to see every few years and stuff like that. Sorry, I just thought him.
No, because that's you're thinking of people who have perspective.
Right. That's
and those are the ultimate ones. I mean, soldiers see horrific things, right? Like awful things. And I mean, you could argue like, some people are like or not just soldiers, what about victims of war on the other side, right? Like if you're in a country that's war torn, or you've been invaded, or you're getting bombed.
It's the injustice.
I often think about that sometimes. Like I think about people thinking like countries where planes are flying overhead, getting bombed. It's not on the news, and you're sitting in your living room watching a movie, and you're angry about because you gotta do a little work tonight before work tomorrow, or you got. That's where the term
that's where this really weird feeling comes though, because like I can picture them both in my mind, and it's just that's what makes me like cringe at myself in a way, because it's kind of similar that it's the whole reading the book thing, because you don't do it, you can't feel it, but because like I know the bombs are being dropped and stuff like that, but because I'm not there, that's why we're not really taking it seriously, or that's why we can't. We're separated by like tens of thousands of miles.
I guess like like you said, I guess maybe the people reading the books.
What's the circumference of the globe?
Hundreds of thousands of. I don't know.
Yeah,
a lot. We're far away.
100,000. Yeah.
We're really, really far. For now. But the idea is that I think what we're getting at here, like you said something there about empathy, right? I guess if you're a highly empathic person, then you might get more out of a book than someone who's not empathic.
Right.
If you have if you can feel, if you're reading someone's story about their suffering and you feel it, there is a chance that maybe you could perhaps gain a little insight into, some of the lessons that they're writing about. But I would still submit that you can put that book down and then you can go back to your comfortable life, right? And that's where it gets tricky. Like that's where, this is why society is starting to tell people to start to enjoy difficult things. And we talk about it in the weight room. We talk about it in in the gym and in cold water stuff that we do, but we don't talk about it in life circumstances. Or I'll guarantee you half the people freaking out in volleyball gyms are reading these books. Not half of them, but a lot, not half of them, but I bet you there's a lot of people who watch these, philosophical things, listen to podcasts, and they're nodding and they're agreeing, and then they'll go back tomorrow night and they'll flip out at the gym. Because again, they haven't arrived at these things through the only way to really, you have to arrive at them. You can't just see. I mean, again, maybe you will listen to people and you will say, okay, you know what, we're going to take a longer perspective on this. But that better have seeped into your whole life then. You know what I mean? Because you can't just turn it on in this one setting.
Well,
so
that
how much do you internalize? I guess what you're reading is what we're getting. Maybe.
That would be a much better way to develop this, is if you're only bringing it to volleyball. And I just speaking from personal experience, these are all emotional things, and it takes many repetitions to kind of be able to halt an emotional reaction. So yeah, it's just like anything. If you'll get better at it the more reps you get. So apply this not only when you're at your kid's volleyball game, but when you're at work and when you're at home or with your family, especially with your family, because your family are the ones who are even more likely to trigger a lot of emotional things, because I don't know, family just can do that. We treat ourselves more bluntly in a way.
Yeah, we're comfortable saying anything with family.
Saying anything.
We take the relationships for granted.
Yeah.
Talk about family, right? People treat their families worse than they treat strangers, because you feel comfortable with your family, and in some ways you don't think they're going to die, right?
Yeah, right.
You can leave the house. You can let someone leave the house who's
because you have this thing that every time you come, everyone's always there.
They're always there. You take the relationship for granted.
Right.
There's that taking things for granted.
Yeah.
That's why families hate each other, because it's very easy to. They're always there.
There every day. Yeah.
They're always there. And one day they're not, and that's when people regret it. Unless their family's treating them like crap legit, then you need to, nothing wrong with cutting your family. I think that if they're legitimately, if it's not bad people
fixed.
Yeah. But I did like that you compared the idea of being grateful. And I hope, people listening should compare all this stuff to this idea of sports. You reps, right? You practice everything else. We practice physical things. If people understand that they should practice mental things, then when you go to the grocery store, maybe you won't be so angry at the person who messes up. Maybe you'll be grateful that you have a place to shop. Maybe you're grateful you have some money to get some food. Maybe, you take it down a notch. So one thing one strategy that we could give people, we probably get into the part where we start telling people how they can be more grateful.
Probably.
Well, no, it's true. We've covered all our topics, it's gone into tangents, but like I said, we're doing this show because we didn't want to do the superficial, play better shows, right? We're talking about philosophies here that really can shift how you perform, right? So as a parent, coach, or player. So one thing, going back to Stoics, it's so good, is it's very healthy for a parent, I think, and a player or a coach to imagine the nightmare scenarios and just keep going deeper and deeper down the nightmare scenarios. Okay, what happens if this happens? And then if this happens? And then if this happens? And the goal is that when you get down to the worst possible scenario in your mind, and don't just glance over them, live there. So what happens if I go to this club team, or next year, let's suppose we start club, and the coach is awful, non-communicative, rude. My kid never plays. My kid is jilted. My kid gets injured. And just keep going down worse and worse, and sort of live there for a bit, live in those scenarios. And then when you come out of those, this is what Stoics do. They sort of almost a meditative state when they're living here. Some Stoics, by the way, will go so far, they'll go homeless. They'll live homeless people, right? And that
ask for food.
Yeah. The beauty of that is that when you come back to your life or your current reality, you're much more grateful for what's actually happening, even if it's unfair, even if it's not good, because you've already been there, you journeyed there a little bit. But there's still something better about actually having bad things happen.
And that's why those certain Stoics they transfer it from not just a visualization practice, but they'll go and they'll actually do it, right? Because it is the ultimate form.
Yeah.
A lot of them were made fun of or whatever for that, but
Right.
they were remembered through history, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's why the volleyball parent or the volleyball player or the volleyball coach, if you are going through a really rough season or a really rough stretch in the gym or in the season, you can oddly be grateful for it. And you know what else might happen is if you do get grateful for it, for what's happening right now, you'll actually just change your perspective, and things will get better. Like whether or not external things actually change.
Right.
Often they do, by the way, because you have a great attitude.
yeah,
Right? Your attitude improves when you have this perspective, and good attitude generally gets rewarded. But also it just gets better because your perspective is better. And then sometimes it literally gets better in terms of like situations can improve because the attitude is shit. And that's where, remember you said you get what you put into the world, right?
Yeah.
What you put in. It is true that way because that's what they mean. The energy you put out into the world comes back to you and what that means is like, so going back to that door holding thing,
yeah,
like, if I'm a negative person and I'm holding the door open for the thank you, then I'll get the anger of the, angry reaction when they don't say thank you. But if I go into the world, like I'm just going to hold doors open for people because I love people and I need to make their lives easier. And then I open the door for them and they don't say thank you. I'm like, see you later. Have a good day. I haven't even I didn't even react. So it's not like other people's behavior changes, but I get back from the world, the lens through which I'm seeing the world. A
Right.
positive person doesn't see the negative stuff that a negative person sees. A negative person who gives out negativity,
yeah.
all they see
Well-
is, we all know people, by the way, right? We all know people who were like, does it seem like always bad things happen to these people?
Right.
And they're not really great people sometimes. And it's because it's not that it's because they're negative people who focus on the negative. So all they talk about is the negative, and then they are negative. And that's why we all can't stand being around negative people.
And don't we, right? And because in a way, you choose to be annoyed, or you choose to be, you can actually be insulted, and it's true. But then you actually, in a way, in a very real way, you get to choose how hard that insult hits you. And obviously, it hurts more the closer that person is to you because your vulnerability is down. But especially when it's someone else, you can, in a way, decide how much it's going to affect you, or you can even use it to your advantage and be like, oh, they're going to slight me, I can therefore use this in an energizing way, right? But so you, like, sometimes I'll say this to my friends or whatever when they're like, oh, like that was so annoying, and I was like, that person was so annoying, and I was with them when we encountered this person, then we had a discussion, then walk away, and then they say that, I'm like, well, why are you choosing to be annoyed like by it? It's just you have no idea what they were going to say. And then, so sure, it happens that way. And then we walk away from it, and now you're saying, yeah, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's sort of
well,
it's sort of like what you're getting at there is tied with gratefulness too, because people who are grateful for things understand that they are in charge of their reactions, not the other person and not the situation. The situation, like you'd have two people reacting they're in the exact same situation, and one person can handle it well and use it for their advantage, and another person could fall apart or lose it and make it a million times worse. So that like you talked about this in another episode about the pause between the incident and the reaction. That pause and that understanding that I can make this a negative and I can feed that negativity, I can pour gasoline on the negativity, or I can make it something else. And I
want to say, when you were talking about meditation, just to speak on that a little bit, it's like anything that you haven't done a lot of. It's difficult at first, and there may be a lot of obstacles that you'll make up in your mind that want to defer you from doing it, like, oh, I'm too busy right now, or I've had too much caffeine, my mind is racing, or all these little things. But you just have to, like, I'm someone who spent enough time trying to meditate and getting disciplined enough where I consistently, but I ran into a lot of these little things before I even did the meditation, right? Just trying to dissuade myself of doing it. But if you stick at it and keep doing it, what ended up for me is I ended up coming to a place like that where I ended up finding there was that space between the emotion and then the reaction, or being able to decide how I will react. Because like, sometimes it's not easy. It's like it is totally just like exercising or anything else that.
Well, who's the best at meditating?
I don't know.
The people who understand that the bad thing of your mind wandering happens, right? The people who are very good at meditation are the ones who don't get angry every time an outside thought pops in their brain. They're the ones who understand that, like we talked about, bad things are going to happen during this meditation session. My mind will wander.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they knew that going in. So...
and then accepting it over and over and over again while it continues to happen while you're sitting there.
So like if you go into meditation before you start a meditation session, if anybody's ever tried meditation, I highly recommend meditation. It's such an amazing way to rejuvenate, like after 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And people think, oh, I can't meditate, I'm not good at it. Well, that's the idea.
My body like feels more flexible. You get weird things like that happen afterwards. It's
100%.
It's like unexplainable.
And you feel like you've been passed out for 10 hours sometimes after like 10 minutes. It's you feel like you've been out of it in a good way. Like
restoring.
You feel rested. Yeah. So like, but the idea there is that
not always, but
but especially, well, maybe not. I mean, if you don't beat yourself up for having straying thoughts, the best people who are like really strong at meditation are very effective, have more effective meditation sessions. Expect the bad to happen,
right? And then that's a core of it. That's one of the early things you'll learn if you are reading a guide or something that's like good. Is they'll say exactly that.
Forgive yourself. That's rule number one with meditation. So
like just surrender to the conditioning of your mind, and we all have like different racing minds and to whatever different degree, right? And probably don't drink too much caffeine if you're going to want to try it. Depending, some people are more sensitive to caffeine than others. But
no, it's true. Expectations I think are a big problem in this topic. And being grateful means that you've lowered your expectations, right? So we people with super high expectations tend to get disappointed. People with lower expectations, not in a negative way, but you are more grateful for things. So let me give an example. So if you're in a restaurant and you expect this meal to be the best meal of your life, you will probably be disappointed in most restaurants you go to. Versus if you walk into a restaurant expecting it to be just another meal, right? You will be pleasantly surprised by a ton of restaurants.
But again, it's a thing that you have no control of. You're not the person making the meal. I've always wondered that when someone like flips out about how when we're eating out and like, oh, this sucks. I'm like, well, we're eating out. Like, what do you like? We didn't get to make it. We don't control.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that's a great perspective.
Yeah, like I understand you paid money for it and you have this expectation, but there it is right there. But like, it's like, I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, it is kind of. Yeah, we had no control over this outcome.
It's just like the lending money thing. Like when I go to a restaurant, I'm giving money and I'm just gonna get what I'm gonna get. Like obviously, if it's terrible, I will be like, hey, like this doesn't seem right or whatever.
Or you just, if it's like, if it's dangerous,
But if it's just like,
if it's a bad meal, it's a bad meal. Yeah. So, I mean, that's good because you probably walk into restaurants not expecting an amazing necessarily experience. You hope it's good.
Yeah. And hold it to a standard where you can still make a feedback, right? But sorry, to the server.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I find myself like, I'm one of those people, I'm sure a lot of people listening to are like this, where you're like overly thankful to people. Like you thank them for everything. And then they're like looking at you and they go, wow, you're amazing. And you're like, I just know that your life is like, you probably get treated like crap here, or you're not, you're rushing around, or customer service. And they're like, like just happened the other day. Someone asked us, you must have worked in customer service. Oh yeah, we were at a restaurant pretty late. And obviously, like, so we're the people, like, if we go to a restaurant, they close, and like we ask them what time they close. If they close like half an hour, I don't stay because I'm like, I know what a pain in the butt that is. And I've never worked in a restaurant. I just know that person wants to get the hell out of here because this is not their life, right? They don't own it.
The people nicest to servers have always been servers.
Yeah, but I was never a server. I just know that this person wants to get the hell out of here, right? So what happened was she was like, so she said to us, like, she told us at the start of the meal, oh, you guys are my last customers tonight. And I'm like, oh, she's like, great. Whatever. That's great. Right. And she said, I get to get out of here. It was like Saturday or something. And then she came back, brought us her food. And then she said, she came up to us with like a look on her face. And I said, do you want us to pay now so you can go? And she goes, oh my God, would you? Like, she was afraid to ask us.
Yeah.
Of course. She said you were going to go. She goes, oh, but you wouldn't believe how many customers don't care, or they get uppity because they want me to stay and serve them the whole meal. Like she checked, made sure we had
she
everything.
was uncomfortable.
But I was
asking.
grateful. Yeah, I was grateful for her life. Like I understood, like grateful for what she did.
Yeah.
And I had that empathy we talked about where she could go, and that sort of idea, like that's what I bring to when I do. I mean, of course things hit a point like in club volleyball life or in where there's weirdness but I have told my kids as they reach the end of their club, like, have we been through this enough now? Like whenever my daughter comes home and talks about some coach or something, saying something, I was like, have we been through this enough now? Should we expect this? Like, should we just expect that there are people who are going to say things that, aren't philosophically right? Like, how long in our lifetimes, like she's 17 now, and I'm like, I think that's just the way life.
Yeah.
I think we just have to expect
it's why
bad things.
Yeah. We do. And we expect the bad. It's funny because we shouldn't practice the thing where you should expect good things. You know what I mean? This isn't a balanced kind of seems like, oh, if we do it this way, we must also do it this way. So the only reason I bring this up is it because there's just more bad things in life, I'm assuming. And then it also...
Well, it's funny though, because the minute you start to live like there are more bad things in life, the more good things you see.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't see the good because we have high expectations. Now, there's a difference though. We should clarify. There's a huge difference between being negative and lowering our expectations, right? There is a realism in one. Like there's a realism that bad things will happen. It's not you're not like you're living like, in fear of a piano dropping on your head. Like I don't mean that. That's a different way of living in the universe. What I mean is like that perspective of that soldier, or that, your grandfather, your uncle.
Yeah. Great uncle. Yeah.
Great uncle. He has a perspective because he's seen it worse and he knows it can go there.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him calm.
Post-war, he was so far from that he could finally be completely,
And you're right. You said nothing fazed him.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's seen it and he knows. So he's not walking through life negative. If anything, he's probably seeing the joy in like beautiful flower, nice day. He's probably experiencing that joy more.
Being able to travel.
Yeah. Being able to travel and not being like shot at or something, right? Like that's pretty powerful stuff. So
clean water, being able to shower.
Yeah. I mean, this is where the word entitled comes from, right? Like entitled people believe that they need to happen at the level they want. And like you said, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that cooking thing. Like the coach is bringing you an experience based on their life. You didn't make the team. You're not coaching the team. Your kid is, or the group of girls or boys on the team are who they are. And you want them all to meet your level of expectation based on your life. That is the epitome of entitlement. That's what entitlement is. That my life story is here, brought me here. I'm expecting things at this level. And if all of you, I don't even know what your life stories are, but I want all of you to match up with what my life story has me believing.
So narcissism is a part of entitlement?
100%. Yes, I think so. I mean, I think narcissism is such an overused term, by the way. Like I think today everybody's diagnosing everybody as narcissistic, which you could argue our society is becoming very narcissistic.
So in a way, it's not wrong.
In a way, it's not wrong. Yeah, but I think exactly. I think sociopath is the one that everybody's labeling everybody as sociopath. Like
really?
Well, there'll be these things like 10 signs you're dating a sociopath, and I'm like, come on, relax.
I've seen that.
Or 10 signs you are dating a narcissist. I
Sociopath.
think we're all wrapped up in our own stories too much. And I think that's why we're not grateful. I think we're forgetting that just as wrapped up as we are in our story, the other people around us are wrapped up equally as much in their stories.
And absolutely. And that's a great exercise right there. Is just realizing
understand that they're so if these are movies, right? I always tell people try this. Picture this as a movie. In my movie, you're a side character, right? But in your movie, I'm a prop. I'm like a side character, right? I don't know. I might be that. I think I'm the star of your movie, though. It's okay. You can say it.
No, my
like
parents...
my name shows up in your movie.
No,
it's before yours.
Yeah,
Starring Erik, the life of Erik, starring Zuby. And also introducing Erik. No, just kidding.
And Guru Zuby.
Guru.
Zuby.
No, but I think that sums it up right there. I mean, what are your...
A weird thing happens when you do this. Like, honestly, sometimes I'll do that when, like, especially when it happens when sometimes I'm on the highway, because the highway is such a weird thing, because it's like there's a person in each car, but you can't see each other. But our behavior comes through in our driving, and also our driving behavior is also somewhat affected by the fact that we are in this closed little steel container and that no one can see our face, and it's a very transient interaction that you have with someone. It's like you're there and then they're gone, right? And so you can do things and then it's just immediately forgiven or forgotten, or you have to accept it because you're never going to see that person again, right? So it's such a weird thing. And like, I don't know, sometimes I'll be in my car and then I'll be like, yeah, okay, so every person in their little car right now is having the exact same experience I'm having in my car.
Did I give you the speech? Because that's the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's just a weird thing. When you do that, I don't know, maybe don't focus too intensely on it because you're also driving a car, but like but your brain hits this wall in a way. Yeah. Or not a wall, but like it hits this, I don't know.
Awareness.
Yeah.
Like I know I've told the kids that. I said, you know the life we're living in this car right now and all these problems and moments and things that we're talking about, and they're so vital.
The whole road is covered.
Yeah. Every car is filled with those same thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's where you can bring that to your volleyball world, by the way. Like, everybody on that team has their thoughts. Everybody on that team, the coach, the parent, they all have they're living in their little world, okay? And they're living their story. And it's really tough to bring our perspective to them. And that's why you should be ready for things not to go as planned, because they're not planning and thinking of things the same way you are.
And it will, yeah.
And it will. It's inevitable. So
yeah. Just like any effort you put into these practices will have a benefit.
Yeah, and the more you do it, like in the car, like we talked about with the waiter, like anytime you can step out of your story, and also understand that, I mean, that'll help you lower your expectations of others because they're not you. And then when your expectations are lowered, your joy and the experiences will be enhanced because you're not bound to the way it's supposed to be. That's the other thing. Get rid of the way it's supposed to be. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as the supposed to be.
No.
We all get trapped and wrapped up in the way this should be a certain way. Nope.
That's a big fault. Yeah. To do.
Humans like predictability, so we tend to categorize things as the way they should be.
Yeah, or speak of things as idealisms or ideologies or whatever, which is just like a projection of all these good values, and then boom, create this reality. But life doesn't work that way.
No.
It's an interesting thought exercise, but ultimately it ends up, what's the point?
Yeah, and it's good to once in a while visualize how things could, like the perfect season, the perfect scenario. But I would submit that after you do that, you should definitely go through the worst case scenario with your kid too.
What are the things that are like, if that's something we're going to work toward, what are the things that are going to get in the way?
Yep. Yeah. And if you want if you want your child to perform, isn't that don't you want that kid to be able to be unflappable, unshakable, have the ability to, make a couple mistakes and bounce? Isn't that ultimately what we want for our kid? To go through adversity and still be okay? Clutch moments, as we say, right? On the court. So we can't, remember, how we do anything is how we do everything. So you can't just be that player all of a sudden. You can't flip that switch in sports. Sports are a metaphor, sports are symbolic of how we are in our core, right? They expose us. Sports is one of those real things where if you're a kid who's insecure or you're a kid who's afraid of failure, it will show up in volleyball. It will show up in the sport. And the beauty of sport is that's supposed to teach us to lose that. How do you lose it? By going through tough things, succeeding later on.
In that moment, yeah.
So if we want our kids to be unflappable, be unshakable, then the more they learn about bad things, and so discuss this with your kid, with your young player, let them listen to this. We tried not to swear this episode, and they will maybe understand that, what, things could be a lot worse. And then what happens
kids aren't going to listen to us.
No, they kids today. but by thinking that
Too many tangents.
yeah, but if they learn that perspective, then they will perform better, right? I mean, the great story, I remember I was talking to you about this the other day, and I told my daughter, like, I was a spin server my whole career, and so she grew up watching me spin serve, and so she developed a spin serve, had a pretty natural technique, and I said to her, like, just keep doing it. Just keep going. A lot of coaches tell you not to because they think it's special and magical, and a spin serve is not special and magical. It's just another serve. And I know that because of the level I play at. But people who didn't play high level think of the spin serve as a magical serve that should only be done once you can get 10 standing serves. And I tell them, no, it's the same as a standing serve.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'd rather pass a spin serve than a float serve anyway, right? Like float serves, they're killer. So, but anyway. So
but the more she does a spin serve, the more she builds the potential that it could become a great
exactly.
asset.
And I said, stick with it because you have a good technique at a very early age. It's pretty rare. Keep going. And sometimes she would stop, and I was like, and she'd serve it at the back because she's strong. I said, why didn't you do your spin serve? And she's like, I didn't feel like I'm like, or sometimes she says, I get tired from doing so many in a row. I'm like, that's a good problem first. But second of all, how are you going to build up that endurance?
Yeah.
You're just going to make sure that you still get tired at 6, or are you going to?
Yeah.
So I said, I would just keep doing it. So, and now she's doing spin serves clutch moments.
Yeah.
Like 14, like she's down 10 serving 14 in the third set.
Thing.
And she just did it like it was no big deal because she had perspective. She's failed enough, and she knows now that it's not a big deal. And isn't that what we want our kids to think? So she has a perspective on the situation.
I love that because that's so big, especially for the spin serve, or probably my own fault for falling.
It could be anything.
Like it is this big special thing, but the serve in particular is a high pressure moment, you can argue. But then a serve at 24 serving 25 is even bigger, right? And so then you add those. Yeah, it's just compounding in intensity. So yeah, the more you do it, the less significant it is for you. It's just another serve.
Can you imagine when you say that? Like, imagine like at the Olympics, okay, 24, 25, third set or fourth set or whatever, right? And some team's about to get knocked out. And can you imagine the server staying on the ground because they're nervous? No, they would never do that.
You don't see that. Yeah.
So that tells you that those athletes got there by perspective.
I love that because then you get some of the best. Like you can see some amazing rallies, or they get an ace at 24-25. That's massive.
Or they hit it in the net and they move on.
Yeah, or that.
I like that's my favorite story. Is I remember I think I told this in our first episode about. We were talking about good coach, bad coach, the coaches that like tell kids not to take the aggressive serve. And, I saw a team have a chance to win a match in the third set. In the fourth set, same scenario. Guy on the national team serves it hard into the net. Everybody high fives. The other team gets the serve. They win that set. It goes to a fifth set. And sure enough, the team with that had the serve for the possible win, ended up losing the match in 5. Nobody went back to that server and said, "Oh, if only you got your serve over."
Yeah,
right? That's like a loser. It would actually be laughable if somebody said that at that level.
Yeah,
because it's just a lack of awareness of process and what it takes to win. But in junior ranks, that coach may look over that player and say in club volleyball and say, "Just stay on the ground. Just don't serve it," because in other words, but the only way you get to that level of so forget about volleyball, think about life too. But the only way you get to that level is through the perspective of going through it enough so it diminishes its value to you,
right?
And that way it becomes easier to do. And you also, by the way, the server and everybody on that team expected it to hit the net. Right? They didn't expect it to go over. They want it to go over, but the reason why they're not devastated, the reason why they didn't throw themselves on the ground going, no,
right.
is because
they
were expecting, like we talked about before, they were expecting the bad thing could happen.
Yeah, ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to say ready for it instead of expecting it.
Ready for it. Yeah.
I
think there's real power in
if I was on your team and you're back there, you go to spin serve, we're like, okay,
but
probably going to go into the bottom of the tape.
But imagine though. No, but like imagine if you the ironic part of that is the player who goes back like they don't care is probably the one that hits the ace anyway.
Yeah,
because
totally.
they don't care.
Totally.
It's like the job interview, right? Like so.
Yeah.
if you go in with the I don't care attitude, you're probably going to get that job because you're relaxed.
Yep.
Versus we talked about the person looking at the coach instructional time, perfection is the enemy.
Yeah.
The person who's worried about perfection will hit that into the bottom of the net or at the back wall because they're too uptight. So there's something about expecting. Well, what I mean is like how many, do you expect to get every serve over all year?
No.
No, that's what I mean though. That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but like I don't, the beauty of not expecting, or the beauty of expecting bad things to happen, is that's how you diminish its impact on you for the next time, right?
I guess, right. I expect that, as well as the other possibilities of, the serve going over the net, their serve being a really great serve and possibly being an ace. I guess, yeah, you're just include the one that goes into the net or out or whatever into all the possibilities. Yeah. I don't know.
And you're probably taking for granted too, by the way, that you don't get that frazzled when you miss a serve.
Yeah, it's just
you take it for granted. But the young players,
right,
and the young and bad coaches and bad
especially
parents,
who are like
they overreact.
Yeah,
they overreact, and then that kid learns, "Oh, I'll never do that again."
yeah.
So it's like a recipe.
I was a victim of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. But now we're at the point where like we just miss high fives and go back. Like
Yeah.
you don't think about it.
No, because you and I know that it was the other 50 points that have been played.
Yes.
Where the mistakes were made.
Yeah. Exactly. Not the last point. Overemphasizing. Yeah.
Mm.
And also we played enough that the value of each serve has diminished in our minds.
And we appreciate the value of an aggressive serve as well. Like I want my teammate to go for it because it might make my job easy and it'll be an ace and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
No, but you appreciate the value of it because
I'm not that lazy.
No, but you appreciate the value of it because you're used to it.
And I know how hard it is.
There's a risk reward.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that.
And that comfort though of going for it. Like I think I watched you and I saw when your spin serve toss got a lot higher. And I could tell that's when you were more into doing it and more confident.
Right.
Because it's funny how there's a connection between the distance between the ball and the player. Like the very
nervousness.
When you're teaching a new jump server how to jump serve, they toss it very low. And you have to teach them, no, just throw it up high. They're afraid. Yeah, they're afraid to... so the more comfort a player has, the higher their toss, unless it's in a short space or whatever. But that takes confidence, and it only comes through repetition, and it comes through exposure to failure, and then you just go, and you lose the inhibitions. I think when you're
and you get those moments of
better perspective. You
get the ace or you don't, and it just feels better.
Mm-hmm. So that's a metaphor for the whole topic. I think the idea of I still think that being grateful. That physical body able to do things.
Yeah.
Like talk about, I think that's probably the most powerful thing that'll reach parents in this episode. I love that one on beach too. Like when some people you're at a beach tournament and there's players that are having a horrible time, horrible day, or they're just something's not going right. And I remember a friend of mine said, but look where you are. Take a look around. Look where you're on the beach here. It's a beautiful day. Could be worse.
Yeah,
that's kind of nice, right? Just to sort of say, I'm playing beach volleyball and I'm getting angry.
So it's not like you can spend 10 minutes a day doing this, or you can literally carry this thought with you throughout your whole day.
That's
one thing,
sort of,
yeah. Like I loved it. I forget, it was a book on meditation, but they're basically just saying how, you can carry this throughout your whole day, or try to. Like one exercise was, sure, sit down and meditate for 10 minutes, whatever. Mm-hmm. Or try to be aware of every one of your breaths for the whole day. I was like, what?
Wow, that's meditation. That is meditation. Yeah.
Right. And it's just you're letting those thoughts come and go, but you're also trying to because one great thing about meditation that does help a lot is just if it's hard to focus, is just focus on the breath, because it's like an automatic thing. And so I think a lot of people start there.
Yeah, it's a nice distraction.
Yeah, and it's consistent and it's always there, and and it's like it holds as like an anchor.
I could just see you focus on every breath all day. You just see hold on a minute.
Yeah, that's what. Well, that's what I first envisioned. Like, wait, how do you do this? But I guess you can do that. Just like we drive and we can think and like have hands-free phone and
Yeah.
talk on the phone.
Or forget how you got somewhere while you're driving. You ever
Right. Yeah. Or you're going somewhere and you totally forget the
just
directions.
you show up and you're like, I don't even remember stopping at any lights.
That's what I mean.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, that would not be good. Yeah. I mean,
But it does happen though, right? Like where
Yeah.
you don't even remember
you forget
the
the
stoplights
process of getting there when you
yeah,
got there.
because you went into a bit of a flow state, as the books call it now. No, I think
Or you were very drunk.
don't drink and
Hopefully
drive.
not.
Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and dive either.
That would not be good. Yeah.
Don't drink. Okay, I think we're good today. I think we got most of the topics. We talked about what does it mean to be grateful, appreciating moments.
I think we got heavily philosophical today.
We got help. Yeah, I think that's going to happen more and more on the show. Sorry if you hate it. If you love it, just forward this to some philosophical
or if
loser
you want
friend
us to be more, I don't know, what's the word?
superficial.
No,
Because that's the problem.
Structured. Like, are we not providing like
I don't think that's a good
what
idea.
things you can do? Or,
This is us. This is us.
Yeah.
Like us for who we are.
I know. I just want to see, like, it's hard to give advice on this, but I think the best thing we can do in terms of giving advice is just talking about
explore it. Yeah, like we that's what we do. I think we go a little deeper behind, because like so if this were some other show, I think that the dialogue would have been something about be grateful, you're lucky to be there, you should be happy. But we went into like why it's difficult, why it's a challenge, and like you know, how it shows up in other parts of your life. We even talked about the idea of like reading all these books, because like, you know, yes, we're going to put out some content for people in book form, but we're going to make it like, and we hope like it comes in connection with the show, right? Because I think a lot of authors write books and they put it out there. But we're telling you, and we probably put in our books, the challenge of, you know, this might not stick. Like we're going to be like, you know, this is why you need to do some of these other things that we talk about, or apply it in all areas of your life, or try it here, try it there. But yeah. So yeah, I think there's no other way to really, like, our society is used to just advice or a poster on a wall.
You have to try it.
You know,
yeah,
be
you
grateful.
Yeah, the t-shirt.
So, yeah, t-shirt. Be grateful.
Or the post on Instagram.
First world problems. I mean, that's sort of where that comes from. Like, and that's sort of silly because it diminishes what people are going through, right? Like, your perspective might be a catastrophe, and people are like, "Oh, first world problems," but it's a catastrophe to that person,
right?
This is why our society is going through some weird things right now in terms of like, who's suffering more in the world, right?
Apathy, is that the right word?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just not understanding that whole story we talked about. Everybody's living their own story, and that's your perspective. But the key is to not expect other people to be living up to your standards of entitlement or your standards of what you think it should be like. And if you expect bad things to happen, try it for a few days.
Yeah.
Try to expect bad things over the next couple of days, and you'll see you're actually a happier person.
Yeah.
How could you
not be?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
All right. I think we better wrap up though. So yeah, thanks for listening. That was episode 23, and we'll be back next week. Another amazing off-topic rant.
Yeah.
Ramble. No, it's not off-topic.
Right.
Yeah.
You're convincing me. I'm convinced.
Good. You're getting sleepy.
What's the big idea?